Hey, there we go. Look at this, a little bit of spirit here.
I have the elf hat, so I'm your helper.
Excellent, excellent. I actually brought this with me. I put it in my bag. I remembered it. Brought it over to Northern Virginia, and it's definitely needed outside. It's so cold. How about you, Scott?
It's San Jose. It's I don't know. It's we've got a little bit of rain going on the past couple of days, but it's pretty warm. It's definitely it's not that cold. Maybe like 40s in the morning, which isn't bad.
Yeah, that's okay. That's cool. And I know that we will probably soon have some lovely video from some of the guys in Barcelona.
Oh, where are you at right now?
I'm in Ashburn, Virginia.
Oh, so you're still in Virginia?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I know those guys are getting themselves together. But Scott, you and I are here, and we can get this party started, this Christmas party as such, I guess.
Yeah.
So again, wanting to welcome everyone here to what's going to be the last webinar that we have of the year. We have had a jam-packed 2019, really. It's been jam-packed. Lots of interesting things have happened. We're going to have a look back on what happened in 2019. We're also going to have a look at what's coming up in 2020. And hopefully there'll be some interesting insights in here for people. But one of the things I have to point out absolutely is that please look at that wonderful graphic that our marvelous team, the dark team, did of me. That's very nice, a nice leprechaun, although I must say it makes me look a lot taller than I am. So thank you very much. So I'll take that one as a good one. But we do have other guests, apart from myself and Scott here today. We also have Daniel, who can hopefully say hi, but this is everyone looking very festive. I like it as well, very good. So we have, of course, Daniel, CEO of Submer. We also have Pol, who's joining in as well. A lot of people may not know Pol. He's not the one who is at all of the shows and everything like that, but Pol looks after a lot of things in the background. Pol is one of the co-founders, so together with Daniel, he founded Submer in 2015. And so it's great to have these guys joining us, because without them, Submer wouldn't be at all. So, welcome everyone.
Yeah, welcome.
And hopefully we can hear from them at some stage once they find that Christmas tree that I know they've been searching for. Pol, how are you doing? Okay, the Christmas tree is still the priority, I think, in the background. Let's move on a tiny bit, and I'm sure we'll have everyone joining in as we're going along. Otherwise, in true fashion of winging things live, Scott and I can definitely share most of this information with you, but I'm hoping that we hear from Pol and Danny as we go along. So I know that as well for everyone who's been following us during the year and even since 2018. You can follow us obviously on all of our channels, and Matteo, if you could just help people to see, that'd be fantastic. So as you all know, we're active on many channels, everything from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, on LinkedIn. And then of course, all of these webinars are made available as podcasts afterwards by our very able team. And please don't forget also our YouTube channel, where we also make these available, but also some other great cool videos, instructional and otherwise.
Do you hear us now?
I can hear you. That sounds like Pol.
Yes, here I am. I think we have Daniel here.
Okay, perfect. Hello there. Merry Christmas to you all.
Hey, and nice to hear you guys. We can't see you though, which is the only bummer. If someone has to activate, if Matteo activates his camera and points it in your direction, I'm sure that'd be good enough.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
My camera, but anyway.
There we go. Look at this, and there's even a small and a big Christmas tree. And what is that on your head, Danny? Reindeer antlers. Very nice. Very nice. Paul, I see that you've gone all out in festive look today, which is great. Nice one. Okay, all right. Moving along, as always, everyone, please feel free, if there are any questions that you may have, please just put them into the question function, which is in the bottom of the Zoom window. And we'll get along to them either during or maybe even at the end. So let's see how that goes. All right. So really, Danny, I would like you to talk about this because, and you may have to move closer to Matteo's microphone so we can hear you properly, but you were obviously not only pictured there along with Joanne, our operations manager, in the right of this picture down here, but maybe start off by talking to us about the project on the left.
Yes, absolutely. So one of our, I'd say, star projects this year with the Joint Research Centre, European Commission body, essentially an HPC environment, a very critical environment in the cybersecurity space. A customer that started testing our technology with a single immersion tank and placed a large follow-on order with a substantial number of tanks to deploy a supercomputer based on fully immersion cooled HPC. I've got two very good partners on that project, 2CRSI and Airbus, doing the system integration for us. The hardware that we used in that project was open compute, so a very good win for the European supercomputing and OCP community. So yeah, that's been one of our key deliveries this year.
Cool. And I know that another very important project to us and partnership for us is, of course, together with CERN. And maybe you can just briefly remind people what it is that we're doing together with them.
Yes, so at CERN we've deployed units in the LHCb experiment, which is one of the main accelerator experiments that actually discovered the particle of God, the boson of Higgs. They have a challenge there with the amount of space available for compute in the accelerator, and one of the immersion cooling is able to provide them much more compute in a much more compact space. Power and is not an issue at the LHCb, because every time they switch on the accelerator, they require 120 megawatts of power just to run the marvelous toy that they have there. But there's a big amount of compute that obviously collects the real-time data. And we have a pilot running with CERN for some time now, where they are evaluating immersion cooling for their future roadmap and deployment into the confined spaces of the accelerator. And that's a photo of Juan and me at the accelerator.
Pretty cool. I know I haven't had a chance to visit that one yet myself, but it's definitely on my list. And maybe when we're in Switzerland shortly, we can do that. Here, just to talk about, some of these are fairly early stages. We're talking here about STC through our partnership with a company called Retam in Saudi Arabia. And this is actually inside of the STC building in Riyadh. And I can tell you that not only are they extremely happy, but that there's a lot of other follow-on stuff that has come from that already, which is very, very exciting to hear. Obviously, being in the Middle East, we know that during the summer months that they have extreme challenges with heat, and really the efficiencies that we can deliver with immersion cooling, everything, it means that it's a real no-brainer for them. So this is a very good step in the right direction. And then staying on the HPC topic, we also deployed at Goonhilly Earth Station. And we know that they've had quite a lot of interest from some of the space agencies and lots of things like that. So that's also quite exciting for that. And just for anyone who doesn't know Goonhilly, it is a HPC dedicated data center, which is based at that Goonhilly Earth Station, which is where they also communicated with some of the Apollo missions and things like that. So that's pretty exciting. And then if we move along, here we go. Oh, there's a lot more people now in this picture here on the left. Scott, you might remember that one. I think it's 2 miles away from you, no?
It is. It's actually less than 2 miles away from downtown San Jose.
Okay, very, very cool. So we had the opportunity not too long ago just to deploy a new SmartPod X there together with Evocative. For those that may not know Evocative, Evocative have a lot of, let's say, smaller data center assets, but they're in very, very strategic urban locations. So this is something that we know is really important, that we're able to really breathe, let's say, breathe new life into some older data center assets and really unlock some of the power, etc. So they come into question for high density applications and even sometimes for hyperscalers. And we also deployed together with Colt data centers. And Colt have been really, I would say, like very much embracing this because they've already seen what it can open up for them. They've had quite a lot of interest from some of their customers, and we're working with them on numerous projects, as we are together with Evocative as well. But Evocative is in San Jose. Colt here, this is right in the heart of London, where anyone can stop in and have a workshop with Submer and go for a pie and mash afterwards. So that's always good.
The coolest part of visiting that site, by the way, in San Jose, that was the first time I saw a Submer unit. Is to put in perspective, you'd mentioned that's an older site. Being a data center guy who's around the block, being able to see a 50 kW cabinet in a 50 watt per square foot data center is really amazing. So it kind of gave a really good big impact of a first impression. So that was good times.
Yeah, and I think we also have to extend a big thanks to Mike Smiley, who's the data center manager there, who was great in supporting us, to Arman, who is the CEO of Evocative. I know we've got great plans together. And also, of course, to Alex, who was organizing the open house and other things that we had there. One of the reasons why I'm here in Ashburn, Virginia today is to go back to digital realty. Where we have an installation in the lobby of Building L, which is a 1 million square foot plus data center, and where Digital Realty is also very keen to show innovation and also give their customers some other options other than the traditional air cooling. So this is also super exciting, and I'm sure we'll be sharing some more pictures as we get that really up and running. There's also the Tiger Paw from Clemson, which is something we're going to be closing out in the next couple of days. A great bunch down at Clemson. Big shout out and thanks to Dr. Amy Apon and Alex and Jay and all of those people. They're students, they're graduate students and even some postgraduate students as well. They're going to be working on projects together with us with hardware manufacturers, where we will be looking at efficiencies and pushing hardware, etc. So that's going to be super exciting. And maybe Daniel, over to you quickly regarding Etisalat.
Yeah, so another unit in a very harsh environment, the Etisalat Innovation Center in Dubai. Where Etisalat is embracing immersion cooling as a key future technology in the region. We are deploying into their Dubai and Abu Dhabi innovation labs with a program to roll out additional units across their data center infrastructure, but this is the first phase of the project. And it's really going to allow us to reach their customer base by bringing them to the innovation labs, which are areas that are obviously prepared and designed to explain new technologies. So very excited to be doing that right now at the end of the year, actually.
Okay, and maybe for anyone who also wants to work together with us in future, the way that we recommend working with us is very much by having some form of a pilot, and then we can really plan and get people used to. But it's also about testing the supply chain, the system integrators, the hardware manufacturers, everything like that, getting all of those pieces in a row. And then very quickly people move on to follow-on orders, etc. So it's fantastic. All right. We did want to highlight a couple of partners here that we have, people that we've been working intensively with during this year. We're going to say just a quick word regarding them. I'll flick through some of them, and anyone else who wants to jump in, Danny, Paul, Scott, please do. But, you know, we know with 2CSI, we've been doing some great work. First of all, they're great supporters of immersion cooling. They have quite a lot of their hardware in immersion cooling, and actually they really know their stuff because they work together with three different immersion cooling manufacturers. So we very much appreciate the support together with those guys. With IBM, also we're working, of course, like closely together with them on some future projects. We are hoping to make a big impact together in supercomputing. When we talk about Gigabyte, also great supporters of immersion cooling. And these are all examples of people that when you work through us or with us, it is possible to have immersion cooling ready hardware delivered straight from these guys. So, you know, this is another thing which is super important. This is a lot of our time spent this year. Lenovo, as we know, they're the #1 in the HPC world. They dominate that space very much so, and it just is also a testament to them how far they've come, and we're also just big fans of theirs as well. With HPE, also with their acquisition of Cray and everything, they're also like a big player now, more so for the Cray side than the HPE side, but they're also people that we very much look forward to working with in the future. We spoke about RETAM briefly, not only about STC, but another number of projects that we're working on together. All of this compute is completely useless if it cannot communicate with each other and also outside. And that's where people like Mellanox, EdgeCore, Arista come into play. So the interconnect is key, and those partnerships are as important to us, of course, as the hardware partnerships. NVIDIA, with their accelerators, their GPUs, no supercomputer which is built from today onwards. And of course, with AI, everything else, GPUs, FPGAs, everything plays a huge part. So that's also like a super strategic partnership for us. Lighton have been helping us regarding some custom immersion cooling ready power shelves for OCP, and they also deliver those straight from the factory as well. They've made some interesting, just smaller changes, making sure that the connectivity is on the front and the power goes in on the front. But a very nice partnership together with them. I'm actually in the Compute Dynamics building here at the moment, so that says a little bit about our partnership with those guys. They're a good bunch. Thank you very much for supporting us, and we look forward to many, many deployments in North America and hopefully beyond with you guys in future. Supermicro, based over more where Scott is, and of course it wouldn't be complete without talking about OCP. The people at OCP, everyone from Bill Carter, from John Laban, from Steve Helvey, and more. Just people like we're big fans of that because open compute and immersion cooling extremely compatible. We also like the efficiencies very much that it brings in, and also the focus where we help steer people towards a more sustainable, more environmentally friendly future. Okay, anyone else want to speak? Please jump in.
Yeah, just a quick note on the OEMs and manufacturers. It's been very interesting to see the evolution from last year, and as a highlight from 2019 or takeaway, I would say that they basically embrace more and more liquid cooling technologies, and of course immersion cooling technology also. So it's been very interesting to see this trend in how basically a year ago they were very skeptic, or sometimes with some of them very difficult to progress, and now that we have this traction and these different interesting projects, they are very happy to collaborate and not only offer these iterations, warranties, etc., but also provide customized high-density hardware for our technology. So it's been a fantastic year on that front, and it was something that didn't depend directly on us. So it's been very interesting to see that the market also is moving in that direction. So yeah, nice takeaway from this year.
Very cool. And Paul, I believe you're up again here now at this stage, regarding the team in 2019 and what you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, I mean, also regarding the team and the as a company and growth of the team has been a very interesting year. Also, last year we were a bunch of or a small bunch of people. Now we went from 6-7 core team members to this 30 plus team spread worldwide, and of course with very interesting new hires like Scott here in the webinar. So yeah, very happy to see this team that grows in very, I would say, multidisciplinary areas, from of course engineering and a lot of technical roles for developing the technology as fast as we could, listening to the customer and to the market, so that we could build what we actually believe is solving in the real world the problems, the major problems of the industry, but also as a commercial organization and also operations organization to be able to scale the production of these units and deliver them to the customer. So yeah, it's been very, very exciting.
Okay. We also have, in this year, we moved Submer's HQ from where we were within a data center, which was kind of fun, where we actually moved to our own location, where we have about 6,000 square feet of office space and about 27,000 square feet of manufacturing and assembly space. Based like very close to the port and other strategic things in Barcelona. I think it's fair to say that we're super happy with that move, and really it changes how we are able to do things. I don't know, Daniel, if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, having our production line just underneath, below our engineering office obviously allows us to iterate very quickly on the product, and anybody that comes up with a crazy idea and wants to test it gets the chance to do that. We also have a small chemical lab where we're able to evaluate over time the behavior of our fluid and evolve our fluid roadmap. So that's very exciting. We didn't have that before. And also some setups for extreme testing and longevity testing and things like that, that we'll be publishing some videos around some crazy electrical tests very soon that we're up to here.
Yeah, one of the things that we do with customers also is doing some tests with their hardware. So we are used to work with any kind of hardware or crazy pieces of electronics in our machines, and we can execute remote tests for them so that we can share data and information and basically progress on their understanding of the technology. Yeah,
and I think it's also fair to say that we kind of grew up in 2019. I think it's fair to say. So it's been a really interesting year, and also to see, of course, like loads of smart pods being manufactured, being shipped, being manufactured, being shipped, and constant trucks in and out. It's just really nice to see, and that's a big thing that kind of builds everybody up, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, this is part of the shipping area of the factory, and we work with different processes, operations processes, and we not only started manufacturing also here in a more bigger scale and with I would say manufacturing processes to be able to throughput much more smart pods, but also we started working with manufacturing in US, so it's another interesting milestone for this year, and basically setting up operations there.
Indeed, indeed. Okay. It's supposed to be the tip for Matteo to please move on. I don't know what happened to him. That seems to be the wrong direction there.
Sorry.
We did, of course, launch the Smart Pod X this year in March at the OCP Global Summit. That seems like so long ago. And when I look at the details here, I have to say, you know, where we can accommodate the 21-inch and 19-inch, where we have it in the two sizes, the smaller 21 open use or 42 open use, where we can now dissipate like 100 kilowatts at least with very warm water, it has to be said. Danny spoke about our own fluid. Yes, there are flexible bus bar options here as well, but like, don't forget, one of the main things is that the CDU here is embedded, and which means that the footprint and everything that it's taking up, and also the fact that for any kind of maintenance or anything, that CDU is just swappable. So I think we made a very good and very good progress, I would say, in this year. And you know, already there we're seeing how this is being received, how the Smart Pod X, particularly in the larger format, is being received, very well received. Okay, we see lots of other hardware and stuff in here. Let's keep going. Okay, so I believe here we're going to be handing this over to Danny for a moment. Is that right?
Okay, yeah. Just some highlights, I would say, from 2019, and these are some things that we've been seeing over the year, and now that we're getting to the end of the year, obviously it makes sense to run through those thoughts. But one that I think Paul already mentioned, like it's obvious and clear that the industry is moving towards liquid cooling. I think on one of our latest trips to Supercomputing 2019, where there were so many liquid cooling players of all kinds, immersion, direct to the chip, single phase, two phase. It was not like that a couple of years ago for sure. So seeing that trend is very exciting. It means that we're at the right place at the right time. And I think we're all convinced it's just going to grow in that direction. The next item is corporate social responsibility. It seems like 2019, everybody in the data center space has seriously started to consider corporate social responsibility, climate change, water shortage, things that were probably not so much associated to the data center industry in the past, seem to be a big point of the conversation, and a lot of the sessions at any data center event are today around these topics. Connecting also with like water rights being a critical issue today when it comes to selecting a site for data center deployment and build, where immersion cooling essentially removes that as a requirement for building a data center. So we think we're playing in a space that's going to have more and more pressure when it comes to those water rights over time. and embracing a technology that doesn't have that requirement is probably a very smart choice today. And then just touching the topic very gently, but we see data centers as a giant machine, and this connects with our roadmap for 2020, which we will be sharing in the coming webinars, most probably. But we think machines should be designed, data centers should be designed for a machine environment and not for a human environment. And if we do that, and these are phrases, I'm just saying things that our friend Scott here has put in our heads very recently, but we truly need to consider building data centers as a machine, and that's just going to bring so much efficiency, and it's going to completely change the data center design and build game. Maybe, I think this is a good moment for Scott to give a bit of his opinion on what direction we might take from a product perspective in the coming months.
Yeah, I think one thing that I remember, and I've given presentations in the industry in the past, is my great-great-grandfather, starting in 1907, had his own car company. So he was one of the early guys who were putting automobiles on the road. And he was helped create his own version of the cloud at the time of to a certain degree, is his own version of something green. And the reason that I say that is in his day, gasoline, oil, and automobiles were environmentally friendly because they were displacing manure that people had to handle in big cities. So at the time, he was an environmentalist who was building something really cool. And here we are building this cloud, and our smartphones are cool and everything. But we, looking at some of the aspects on this slide, in a very quick time frame, we've gone from using 0% of the world's energy to approaching 10%, and by 2050, perhaps even doubling that. When it comes to water use, we've gone from practically zero water use to now using 3% of the world's total water. So what's interesting is we're part of fundamentally shifting that movement, because without doing that, I think the cloud, it very quickly becomes, when I first moved to LA, I learned the word smog in regards to it really isn't a cloud. It really isn't green. It's when you look at those numbers, it's potentially polluting and potentially puts the world and the environment at risk. So being part of making that dramatic shift in saving water and saving energy and creating that machine optimized environment that doesn't need as much or any of either really makes a big difference. So thanks for having me, and I'm excited. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
We're just super happy as well that you share our let's say environmental concerns and outlook, and that's also like quite high on your agenda. And I think that together we're going to absolutely see amazing things. I think the message from this here is really, and please forgive me everyone, but I've seen so many different numbers on this particular thing regarding data center growth, anywhere from 9%, 12.5%, even 14.3% with some of the latest things. But the truth is that data centers are continuing to grow. Right, that's it. Absolutely, and it's a huge industry, and even if this already large industry is growing at 10% year over year, it's still like absolutely massive. So you can understand how many megawatts and whatever are being added every year. Okay, and now it's kind of up to everyone here as well for us to share with each other. And with everybody out there, what we learned in 2009. And I don't mean that we just learned that Freeman wasn't free. So, which is one of the funniest things. So what did we learn about like these strategic partnerships and everything else? So Paul.
So one of the main things regarding partners is that we learn how to deal with them in a way that they act as a, or embrace them as a channel, not only as a direct OEM partner, for instance. So what we've noticed is that since this trend in the market looking for more densities and us being able to refer to them new customers because of our solution that basically fits with their needs of density or efficiency, we've brought some of these OEMs quite a lot of business, and they perceived us not only potential technology that they can somehow integrate with, but also as a new channel. So now what we are doing is leveraging these OEMs and these different manufacturers and ecosystems of technology as a channel, so that we can be introduced in their portfolio, and basically it's a win-win situation for both of us. So in that regard, I think this is something interesting that last year didn't happen and now is taking off.
Yeah, I think it's also the realization for us, of course, and you know, this is, everyone likes to think that they're the center of everyone's universe, but you know, the truth is that the biggest invest in a HPC project is always going to be in the IT hardware. And you know, we know that immersion cooling is a catalyst for change, but it is only a certain percentage of the overall picture. But what it does for HPC is it means that more of the HPC budget can be spent on the hardware, therefore getting them into a better position, more powerful, greener computing, everything else like that. So, you know, we really appreciate those OEM partnerships. We are very happy to partner together with all of them. And, you know, we know our place, which is also important, I think, but we're going to continue to push to innovate on everything underneath. And maybe then just regarding, you know, the trends, like, of course, we've seen a lot more GPUs and other accelerators in supercomputing. Scott, what else are we going to see in this regard?
I think the coolest thing that I think we're going to end up surprising the world. So immersion cooling, everyone, and it's largely driven by GPUs and high performance compute and everything. Everyone wants to be cool, and quite frankly, in the data center industry, wanting to be cool or more cool, it has always been a consistent trend. But what I really think is by creating this cooler environment, that actually immersion does much more than cooling. It actually, our brains are immersion fluid. I mean, they wouldn't be very smart if they weren't. So I think what we're going to find is by helping people be cooler, they're going to learn that they're also being smarter, and smarter in many different ways: better power density, healthier and more reliable, more eco-friendly, more efficient, and effectively creating that optimal environment for electronics, kind of like a fluid environment is for the brain. So I think people are going to be surprised by what they're going to get, aside from just being cooler. Or being able to cool, you know, higher density stuff.
In the interest of time, Matteo, let's move on a little bit, because I know Scott also has some other stuff that he really wants to share with us. So let's see where we get to. Yeah, we have a number of other deployments and things coming up in 2020. I love how vague this map is. It's fantastic. Yeah, but like, you know, some of these are, of course, quite you know, strategic. So like making our first inroads and steps into places like Singapore, delivering on some really big projects which are actually spread across 3 different locations with the one partner in Asia, in Europe, and then also in the US. And just a lot of things that we have been working closely with people like over the periods 2018 and 2019, which are then really coming to fruition, and where we'll start seeing them with some larger scale deployments. So we're super excited about 2020, especially in the deployment stage. And regarding the different partnerships, so we firmly believe and maybe sharing with you how we view things. I think people would think it's strange enough that we are kind of in any way focused on co-location, but as it turns out, you know, co-location is where a lot of those high density people can go to in order to have their projects co-located. And with us working together with those co-location providers, giving them those tools, as I said, in particular, helping to breathe new life into maybe some slightly older assets or something like that. That's something which is really great for all of us. It is recycling, it is upcycling, it's whatever else you want to call it. And what we would like to also really point out here is, people, please, you know, if you have not seen things before, if you're not familiar with immersion cooling, and please feel free to do this and reach out to us via our web pages. We have the function book a demo, and we have these in the West Coast of the US, the East Coast of the US, very soon also in Texas as well. In London, in other locations in the UK. Of course, at any stage at all, we welcome people to come and visit us in Barcelona, also then in Hong Kong, and then very soon as well in Singapore. And these things are key for people who are associated with mechanical and engineering, with architecture, with building, with anything in and around data centers, HPC, anything. Please, we are very, very happy to do so, and very happy to share the knowledge, because we're all helping each other to have that, to make HPC and data centers much greener. Okay. Wow. Okay. Visions. Visions is always very big. Daniel, we have to look to you when we talk about visions, and then you can hand off to Scott or whomever else you want.
Well, I think we've tapped into it already, where we have given some hints that we're moving into automation of the submerged infrastructures, and thinking about data centers as a machine end to end instead of environments that are designed for humans. So that's definitely the direction that Submer is moving in for 2020.
Okay, maybe then over to Paul, and maybe just talking about the team and how you see things in 2020. What do you see as the evolution, Paul?
We are growing our team in different areas. Of course, regarding engineering, we see certain, probably to fit with this vision we have, and with our own fluid roadmap, we will increase our chemical engineers and lab here in the factory. We now have a small lab that allows us to iterate fast, but we want to test different approaches also. And regarding the robotics, engineering, automation, etc., we are going to see some interesting changes also. And also regarding the commercial organization and the actual operations, we are starting to manufacture in US, as I mentioned before. So this means also having more presence there and having more commercial presence in the US and Asia regions, for allowing us to leverage these data centers and installations deployments that we have, so that we can also do these tours and booking these visits to these installations, because as you mentioned before, is very, very important that customers can see in real life the technology and try it by themselves. So yeah, we are seeing a little bit of everything, and basically the expectation is to double the team during next year. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. Scott, this is all you, I believe.
Yeah, so you guys asked me what are 3 things that I was excited about relative to technology, to what happened in 2019, how it fits into 2020. I had 3 things. Both of them had indirect connections or direct connections to us. One is obviously emergence of 5G, and how between now and really 2050, energy usage of the world is going to become more highly distributed and grow in the cloud sector. The other was quantum computing and how that's going to make some massive changes and making things more efficient between now and then. And then the third, which obviously has a direct correlation, was the Beyond Meat. So the plant-based meat movement. And I think this was the most successful IPO of 2019. So effectively this plant-based meat replacement, and you would think, how does it have a connection to us? And it really has a connection to us in water. So let's talk about water for a second, because in the data center industry, we talk a lot about power, but it's actually acknowledged by many experts that clean and available supply of water is actually a top 5 concern on our planet when we kind of grow from, wherever we are to, 10 billion people by 2050. And the data suggests that if we don't make changes to the way we're doing things today, by 2050, the demand for water by humans will exceed the supply on the planet by 40%. So we have to fundamentally change not only how we get water so we can increase the supply, but how we use water. And the two really bigger standouts of the world when it comes to water usage are the tried and true agriculture. And so when you look at meat, and Beyond Meat is making big movements because, let's say, a McDonald's quarter pounder with cheese, the burger patty in that takes about 500 gallons of water to produce. Or a Beyond Burger that actually I tried, tastes pretty darn good, takes about 93% less. So when you look at things and realize our population is growing, agriculture is taking a massive amount of water, and we really can't sustain that growth. What's happening in this plant-based movement is now you have similar food that uses 99% less water, they say, 93% less land, so it's got, just like us, better space density, and 90% lower greenhouse gas emissions. So that's really what's happening in meat. And then in the meantime, in the data center space, we continue to be one of the biggest new ways of growing water use on the planet. And not only are we capturing more data and growing data centers, but the number of internet users are continuously going to increase by 2050. So we're really, when it comes to water, I would argue the second biggest problem causer on the planet with this new technology. So how do we make changes in that space? And to put in perspective, when we go from 4.5 to 8 billion users, in data center water usage, unless we make change, is set to triple in that time frame between now and 2050. So we've got this global issue. Beyond Meat is doing something in the non-data center space, problem number 1, and is getting really high regard because it is on a good roadmap. What we are doing in Submer kind of addresses the second biggest problem when it comes to water, because here we're talking about 100 kW racks, which is amazing in itself, that can use 0 water. And this is something that is quite different than data centers that could use millions and millions of gallons of water. And then the other thing that's not mentioned is sewer discharge pollution. A data center, average data center, can discharge about 20 million gallons of wastewater in the sewage. We're 0. So I think when you look at things, Beyond Meat in a way is good inspiration, because they're tackling the biggest problem. We're along with them tackling the second biggest problem. So I thought that was an interesting progression that connects the dots with us. So yeah, good fun.
Cool. So shout out to the marketing team. We are the Beyond Meat of the IT industry.
It tastes pretty good too.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I have to admit. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, very cool. So I think, dear Santa, for next year we wish, and go ahead, Daniel.
We wish to see more policies that enforce the use of responsible and efficient technologies. And this
very well read. Very well read.
This is very much connected to that Beyond Meat scenario that Scott was just talking about, for sure. We definitely wish to see more powerful chips and denser hardware. We'd love to see that, because immersion cooling is capable of much more than 100 kilowatts per tank. So we're already planning on doubling that next year. And the IT industry needs to hopefully accompany us on that adventure of moving into denser tanks.
Yeah, and let's also remind ourselves that having denser, with the building side and things, with less concrete being used and stuff like that, that's also a super positive thing for our planet. Very cool.
We also wish for the rest of the OEMs that still haven't embraced immersion cooling to make the brave step and join us on that adventure.
Do we dare mention any names?
We won't mention any names.
Oh,
no.
Come on, Danny.
Some of the bigger ones out there, for example, beginning with D and ending in L, still posing the challenge. But I mean, thankfully, most of the larger OEMs already have a clear roadmap to embrace immersion cooling, and we're working very closely with them. I think that's absolutely key.
Yeah. And as you said, even if we're not working on current projects together and whatever, people from their teams, please reach out to us. We have a program where we work together with the OEMs. We can do it absolutely very easily. Okay.
Yeah. And my biggest wish for 2020, is that everybody thinks out of the box and takes risks and evaluates technologies that maybe they would have never thought as being in a data center, and we're very happy to educate and show our technology and do workshops, and we've managed to convince a lot of haters this year. So that's one of my biggest wishes for 2020.
I think if people can visually imagine, in one particular case where we had a guy essentially throwing himself in front of the forklift, carrying a smart pod into the data center, and then 4 hours later, that same person was the one who was excitedly sharing the technology and who became the best advocate. So, really goes to show.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. So Q&A here. We do have one question. I'm going to direct it towards Paul.
Okay.
It's just one question. And it says it's from somebody anonymous. We do also prefer that people would actually identify, but that's fine. So it sounds like we've got a lot of plans for growth in the near future. What's the status of financing through VCs or strategic partners to fund this growth?
Cool. So yeah, of course, we have interest from different VCs and venture capital and I would say also corporate arms of tech companies or companies related to the either cooling or data center, etc., etc. We are actually fundraising. We are doing a Series A, and I mean, glad to maybe if there's any interest in that regard, perfect, let me know. But yeah, of course, we are leveraging our growth so that we can basically be even faster on this journey, basically.
Okay, very cool. We have another question here for immersion cooling technology globally. What is, one, the market size in terms of revenues and numbers of racks? And two, the growth rate percentage at present and in 3 to 5 years' time. I'm going to just call up that data, seeing as I want to quote accurately. But I see that we have a question from young Gareth. How many pods are we projected to install next year? That's a good one. Danny, how many are we?
We're projected to install around 400 pods next year. That's really what we're aiming for. We have a couple of projects in the pipeline for next year that just on their own are more than half than that. So we think it's quite feasible to achieve that in 2020.
Yeah, and maybe giving people an idea of, you know, we're kind of set to finish this year, having done approximately, I'm not going to share exact numbers, but just having done 10x of what we did last year. And then for 2020, our goals are really more than tripling that, so quadrupling what we've done this year for next year. And you know, it just is really, of course, we were coming from nowhere to somewhere, which is great. But just to share with people, the liquid immersion cooling market in 2019 was around about $500 million, so just over 500 million. And we are projecting it to go up to approximately 2.8 billion in 2024, just giving you an idea. There are a number of players there. The next years are going to be very interesting. What's important is that we are promoting liquid immersion cooling itself, because it is the most efficient way out there. We prefer, of course, the single phase, but that's because of practicality, other reasons as well. But it is important that we very much promote immersion cooling together, so that we really keep that data center footprint and impact on the world as low as possible. And then coming back regarding any other questions. Oh, great. What's the approximate price range for a 142U pod and ROI in years? And Cyan, I would be very happy to get back to you in person on that. Of course, it depends on the region and depends on a couple of things. The ROI, though, is something which is super easy, because if you're building a new data center with air today, that means that you're spending anywhere between 6 and 10 million per megawatt, whereas a new immersion cooled data center will be between 2 and 3 million per megawatt. It's because of the much more compact footprint. It's also a much simpler end-to-end solution, because you're actually front-loading a lot of that cooling technology straight in, providing precision cooling right where the heat is being generated. So your overall picture is much easier. Okay, and then we have from a certain Mr. Delfino, who is also known. So how do we see standards evolving in support of immersion cooling? Danny or Scott?
So yeah, I'm happy to answer that one. We work very closely with the standards, specifically Open Compute, and we're also getting involved with Open 19. Open Compute is a very good example of how collaboration in an open environment is helping us work with the hardware manufacturers of that are also working in that standard, to embrace immersion cooling and to design hardware and IT equipment and power shelves and UPSs for immersion cooling. So we're just going to do that more and more. And actually, we have a couple of hires planned for this year to just focus on collaborating and sharing specs with the standards, so that we can accelerate on those fronts. And even we actually consider them a channel for us as well.
Super. Before we wrap up here, I personally would like to extend a huge thanks out to Matteo, Dario, Gloria, all of the people, of course, within operations, within engineering, everybody inside in Submer. And of course, anyone who's been tuning in and paying attention to anything we've been doing over the year. Apart from that, I would also like to give you, Scott, Paul and Danny, like also an opportunity, please, anything you want. And you can see the events we're going to be at over the next while, which has, of course, a big focus on there's some OCP, some data center, fairly generic stuff. But we are talking as well about our home show, Mobile World Congress, which actually takes place just down around the corner. So please look out for us there, and you can reach out to us beforehand if you want to book any time with us. Scott, Paul, Danny, anything you would like to add?
Just wishing happy holidays and wrap up of a happy year like we've had so far, and basically glad to answer any further questions and connect with us if you want in all these tons of social media and channels that we have, because we want to basically help people and share our ideas and yeah, what we do.
Cool. If there's nothing else from the elf man.
Yeah, it's just I'm really excited about what we're going to be doing in 2020. And so I think we're going to have some really, going back to the roadmap and looking forward to that webinar to be able to share more of, what we're going to be doing next is really exciting. So that's what I've been focused on. And no, it's good to be here. Thanks. And yeah, I'm actually noticing we have Santa, and then we have his servant reindeer and his servant elf. So I was wondering that surely isn't by coincidence. So Santa, no, thanks for having us.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Everyone out there, take care. Have a really good end of year. And we are going to see you for a very happy Liquid Cool 2020. Take care, everybody.
Happy holidays, all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.